The President's Address to the International Vegetarian Congress by Donald Watson in The Vegan, Autumn 1947. The vegan believes that if we are to be true emancipators of animals, we must renounce absolutely our traditional and conceited attitude that we have the right to use them to serve our needs. We must supply these needs by other means. Throughout history, whenever man has risen against cruelty and exploitation, he has benefited himself as well as those he emancipated. This is the law of progress. Therefore, further advantages will follow if we seriously tackle those cruelties upon which civilization is still so largely built. If the vegan ideal for non-exploitation were generally adopted, it would be the greatest peaceful revolution ever known, abolishing vast industries and establishing new ones in the better interests of men and animals alike. From careful deductions, we feel able to make 4 claims. 1. Veganism would establish for the first time a right relationship between man and animals. 2. There would be a great improvement in health if man returned to his original frugivorous diet, therefore eliminating the risk of infection or poisoning arising from using animal food. 3. Veganism could abolish malnutrition and famine. 4. Veganism could restore soil fertility throughout the world. If these claims can be upheld, then it will be clear that some of our greatest problems today have their roots in the misuse of the animal. The remainder of this address will therefore be devoted to supporting these claims. The new relationship between man and animals. The present relationship is, of course, deplorable. Man has appointed himself lord and master over everything that breathes, and he has filled the world with millions of creatures for no other purpose than to exploit them for personal gain and kill them when it no longer serves his purpose to keep them alive. This is accepted by science and by Western religion as part of a necessary order without alternative. How far we accept it depends on how far we are prejudiced by false ideas. The vegan renounces it as superstitious that continued human life depends upon the exploitation of these creatures, whose feelings are much the same as our own, and by comparison, he wishes to see a world in which animals will live healthily, free from exploitation, mutilation, and slaughter. That this will be possible when the animal no longer has a commercial value will be shown later. The vegan considers the abolition of the slaughterhouse as a reform of the first importance in the reconstruction of human society. For so long as it remains, society has no morality, and without a morality, man can never establish for himself a decent order. 10,000 churches do not make a morality. Indeed, by stressing dogma and ritual, they divert attention from the great issue of cruelty, which must be faced if the good life is ever to be established. Morality is not determined by what we believe, but by what we do, and particularly by what we do to others less strong than ourselves. Once accept that the strong have the right to exploit the weak, and the basis upon any decent society can be built is destroyed. The psychological aspect of veganism. It is significant that the vegan stands alone in advocating a diet without dairy produce. The opposition we face is general, and it includes all branches of the nature cure movement. How strongly government policy favours milk in the diet is shown by the fact that milk has priority over all foodstuffs, and agriculture in this country is made to conform to the milk target. Any dislocation of supply is treated by the press with the seriousness of a threat to continued existence. Thousands of doctors and millions of laymen believe it suicidal to try and live without dairy produce, but these are they who have neither reasoned nor experimented with vegan diet. Few dietitians outside the vegan movement have tried living without animal food, or have made any serious attempt to solve the diet problem philosophically, as it must be solved. Without the guidance of philosophy, scientific investigation soon flounders in the morass of error. The vegan believes that the rotting of the human body, which is marked by the death rates for certain chronic diseases almost doubling in a generation, is taking place chiefly through faulty nutrition. We ally ourselves with those who urge for crops to be grown on naturally fertilised soil, and with those who denounce devitalised food. We feel also that the destructive effect of heat upon food must receive more attention, and that only when these 3 approaches are combined with the idea of eliminating animal food will the diet problem be solved. The life work of Dr. Bircher Benner and others informs us that the raw vegetable diet properly selected is the most potent healing factor that exists. There is unnecessary confusion concerning the use of animals' milk. In nature, there are carnivores and vegetarians, but there are no lacto-carnivores and no lacto-vegetarians. these are artificial groups of man's creation, and neither could operate under natural law. We think nature has fixed all the feeding groups that are necessary or wise, and that we should decide to which we belong. Regarding the right use of milk, there can be no doubt. It is for infant mammals before weaning. It is not easy to understand why the orthodox dietitian is taking so long to discard the superstition regarding the supposed need for animal food. The vegan certainly need not go short of starch, sugar, vitamins, fats, minerals, salts or roughage, for plants are rich in all these factors. Thus, the error is confined to protein. It is significant that human milk, which serves to nourish man at the time when his growth is fastest, contains never more than 2% of protein. This suggests that our diet in later life should not exceed this percentage of protein, which can readily be supplied from plants. So easily can it be supplied that the vegan faces the same danger as the flesh eater and the lacto-vegetarian in that he might take too much. How food shortage can be abolished throughout the world. Several factors subscribe to the problem of food shortage: bad weather, ruining crops, disease in crops, inadequate transport facilities, lack of purchasing power, and loss through attacks. If man grew more grain, pulses and nuts, which store well, the effect of local harvests failing would be less serious. If the soil were kept fertile by natural means, disease in crops would be lessened, if not eliminated, as Sir Albert Howard and others have demonstrated. If more food were grown locally so that the communities were self-supporting, the transport problem would be eased. Millions of rats and mice breed under and around poultry houses and farm buildings, therefore the problem would be enormously simplified if animal feeding stuffs were removed from the farm. All this is clear, and it fits in well with the vegan system, but not until vastly more is produced will food be cheap and the poor well fed. The solution lies chiefly in greater local production. In return for food given to animals, we receive in the form of units of nourishment but a small fraction of the outlay. The explanation for this extravagance in time of world famine is the superstitious belief that animal foods are necessary for human well-being. It is this fallacy that has led our government to adopt a policy of more livestock at this critical time. It is highly improbable that the earth could produce enough food to give all of its 2 billion inhabitants the mixed diet recommended by orthodox dietitians. On the other hand, it is certain that Britain, more densely populated than India and one of the most densely populated areas on earth, could become a food exporting country given a few years to develop vegan methods of agriculture. The enormous contribution that is made to the nation's larder by the amateur gardener was shown recently by Mr. L.G.G. Warren of the Botany Department, Victoria University, Manchester, who calculated that from 1/4 to 1/2 of our vegetables come from allotments and private gardens. These allotments, which form a narrow fringe round our towns and cities, and which one passes by train in a matter of seconds, are a revelation of what could be produced by an extension of the idea. How soil fertility can be restored. Any system of diet or of agriculture which leads to the progressive deterioration of the soil stands condemned. Therefore, veganism must be subjected to this test. One of the most commonest criticisms we receive is that under a vegan system, the animal would cease to have a cash value, therefore it would die out and the soil would then deteriorate through lack of organic manure. This would not be so. In reply, firstly, we reject the implication that all is well with the soil under the present system. The truth is that the position is so perilous that without an urgent scheme to provide more organic manure to replace chemical crop stimulants, the soil will soon be destroyed. This would be the greatest disaster that could befall mankind. As we all know, the difficulty arises because the law of return is not obeyed. Under the present system, animals certainly provide valuable manure, but it is questionable whether the final analysis the animal aids soil fertility for the manure comes from the soil in the first place. When the creature goes for slaughter, the whole mineral content of its carcass is lost to the soil, usually never to return. Similarly, the milk which comes daily from the meadow contains mineral matter which later goes down to the sea. In a century that once rich hill grazings of New Zealand have deteriorated enormously through this soil depleting process. A similar loss is affected, of course, when plant crops are taken and no wastes return. Sewage waste cannot continue indefinitely without bringing about disaster to agriculture. This is being recognised and large schemes for composting sewage sludge are now in operation. But can the waste of diseased carnivorous humans be safe? The dangerous nature of the excrement, even of healthy carnivores, is shown by the instinct these creatures have to bury their wastes immediately, but vegetarian animals have no such instinct. A generally applied system of using sewage in this country at present would include the waste from over 5 million of cancerous or potentially cancerous people, apart from the waste of those suffering from other diseases. Thus, there would seem to be some danger in assuming too readily that composting restores in a few months such waste to a level of safety. On the other hand, there seems no reason why the waste of healthy vegan communities should not be used. In fact, this practice has been followed by some vegans for many years with excellent results. If generally practiced, and if all plant wastes were returned to the soil, a healthy agriculture could be established without the use of animal. Though, under a vegan system, there would be so much land to spare that herds of animals could live healthily and manure grazings which could later be used for growing crops. In this way, the animal given neither meat nor milk would not be a channel through which mineral matter left the soil.